Hello. Hi, Sad. Here I am. Um, Hi, Delphina. Good to see you guys here. Now, don't forget if you fancy chatting with me during this gathering, chatting live, I mean, you must phone me preferably via Facebook phone, and we'll just chat live. If it's a video chat, then I'm able to share your video. So yeah, join us. But now what I'm going to do is we've come to the peace and racial harmony portion of our afternoon, and in a few minutes I am calling Wakeway. So you guys would have seen the um, the video that Karen Bisson created for us, and we appropriated Wakeways song Navigate. And we're we're so fortunate to have Wakeway actually with us. I've been trying hard to track her down these last few days, and she's going to chat with us a little bit. But now, before I do that, I'm going to play you a song, and I'm not really sure whether I can stream this in, unfortunately. But uh, during that Millennium Gathering, as I told you, Grandfather Commander hosted a concert, an amazing concert, and it was Garnet Challenger and his late wife, Debbie Cordick, who coordinated it for us. And I have to tell you, this was one of the earliest concerts in the city of Ottawa, way before Jazz Fest and all that stuff. And the musicians, uh, okay, one second. Hello, Delphina. Um, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, just one second while I finish
Yeah,
off
just one second while I finish off
telling people about
telling people about
the concert, and I hear an
the concert,
echo.
and I hear an echo.
So you might,
Oh
I'll
dear.
call
So
you.
I'll call
Hang up
you.
and I'll call
Okay.
you
Hang up
back.
and I'll call you. Okay.
So yeah, back to
So
me,
yeah,
and
back to me.
no, I have to close that off. Back to me and sharing regarding that concert. Well, we had people lining up wanting to join us to perform their music at our Millennium concert hosted at Nepean Point. His grandfather said Nepean means place where we meet, so it affirms that the Ottawa area is part of the meeting grounds of the ancient peoples of North America for countless centuries. And we hosted this gathering at Nepean Point, and I'm just going to see if you can hear this. And please respond right away. So and whether you can.
Hello，大家好，欢迎大家观看娱乐新闻报道麦克波罗秀。我们今天要来采访的是从 Dominica 岛来的 Garnet Challenger。首先，让我们来看看谁是 Garnet Challenger，让他做一下自我介绍吧。
Garnet Challenger is a musician that was born in the Caribbean on the island of Dominica. And Garnet Challenger cares a lot about people, so he sings about social issues that affect humankind.
请问一下，您表演的是什么样的音乐吗？
Well, my music, I would call it reggae music. It's a very popular music that was played by this popular artist called Bob Marley. And that music is a music that usually deal with, like I was saying, social issues that affect human being and try to bring people together and make them realize it's one world and many colors, so we should be able to live together in peace and harmony.
请问近期你有没有想法到中国去演出呢？
Oh, definitely. I would definitely like to play music in China, because of what I'm singing about, and is to bring people together. Admire other cultures, because you always get to learn from them. Like the Chinese culture, I think to have about 1/3 of the population of the world and keep them together and keep them fed. I think the Chinese did a wonderful job, and I definitely get little ideas from that way of thinking, that way of respect, like respect your elders. I think that is very, 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 very important. Planned it. That's the way he wants it. That's the way Jah planned it. That's the way he wants it. That's the way he wants it to be.
好的，谢谢您，希望您能参与我们下一期的麦克菠萝秀。我是黄婷婷。
So how about that, folk? Garnet Challenger playing in Dunrobin, like Canada, with the Connection Band, but actually filming this documentary, this video at Victoria Island. You'll see Parliament Hill, you'll see our space over there, and you'll see Grandfather Commander in the middle of it. Of course, he was tapping his toes to Garnet's music for a long time. Again, a special acknowledgement of Debbie Cordick, the late Debbie Cordick. Very best to you, Garnet. I hope we can track you down soon too. But that is a great segue into the phone call I'm now going to be making with somebody else we managed to track down, and that's Wei Kuei. So I mentioned Nepean Point, and at that place, Wei Kuei sang, sang for us. She called in the thunders, literally called in the thunders, and we had like just an amazing storm happening. Uh, a couple of years ago, I had tea at the art gallery, which is where the Nepean Point overlook is, and I noticed that they've got a lightning rod there. So really, Wekwe, you did quite a job for us over there, energizing the spirit of nature in what must have been a critically important lookout spot for the people who came to this area, this Asinabka area, this place of glare rock, this place of ancient rock from 560 million years ago at least. So yeah, so that's really really a special video. But how about that? It's a young woman from China who's actually interviewing Garnet, who comes at some stage from Dominica, and so he taught us a lot about the indigenous peoples, the Caribs, the people from that area in the early stages of our relationship. So please enjoy. And now I am going to phone Wei Kuei. So let's try. One.
Hello.
Hello. How lovely to reconnect with you. How are you?
Woohoo! Meg Wet's rock and roll. Oh, I miss everybody in the circle so.
Yeah, well, that reminds us of Frank right away, doesn't it? Miigwech rock and roll.
Well, I grandfather too.
Grandfather too, yes. Oh my gosh. So,
So happy to hear your voice, Romola.
uh,
You
th-
know, before we get into any joking or funny stories, most serious thing needs to be said, and that's the greatest gratefulness and thank you to you for carrying this on. So important that you guys met each other, that it happened. So important. I always shake my head like, my gosh, thank goodness.
thank you. That's sweet of you. I'm just remembering, when I first met you, it was at the very first gathering in Manawaki that
Mm-hmm.
I had ever gone to. I had met Grandfather Commander before that in the context of my Aboriginal justice work.
Right.
And he invited me to his gathering, and initially I was quite reluctant to go. I was dodging, I knew he was a real big shot elder, but I felt like, oh my God, quite intimidated to go and join a bunch of strangers on a reserve in northern Quebec. So when he first
God.
invited me, I said, I'm not so sure. Why would I go? And he said, oh, yeah, I suppose that's the $64 question. Well, a week before the gathering, he called and asked if I were coming, and I was still dodging. And he said, anyone can learn.
Oh.
And so, suitably humbled, I rented a green station wagon. I put my foam headboard in it. I bought granola bars and orange juice and went camping.
I remember.
And I say, fortunately for grandfather, he didn't send me to that far back parking lot. But anyway, so yeah, so there I arrived. I parked under his home and set up my car camp. And then we walked around. It was a Thursday evening before the actual gathering started on Friday. And Here were the St. Ange twins setting up the sweat lodge.
Yeah, oh
Yeah, and it was pretty incredible because I had delivered some justice training in Quebec City some time back, and there was supposed to be a translator, but there wasn't one. So I had to parler au anglais et français et essayer très fort to communicate with everybody. And by the end of my sort of bilingual experience, I got many kisses from all the indigenous peacekeepers. Well, one of them was Omer Saint Ange. And so here I arrive at the grandfather's gathering, walking around with him, and who is setting up the sweat lodge but one of the twins, the St. Ange twins, and who, in fact, were going into that very first lodge for that 1997 gathering was, well, here's one of our buddies, and I'm hoping you can see him. Can you see him?
I can't. I think because I'm talking on the phone. Wait.
Oh, yeah, you can't. Okay, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'll show it to you later. But actually, there's grandfather in his T-shirt, and there on the other end is Tom Dosto.
Oh my goodness.
So Tom was also a part of the Sunbow 5 energy, but Tom was also there at that sweat lodge. And who went into, okay, so then it was the strangest thing. The twins asked me to say a prayer for the water. And I was quite stumbled because I thought, oh my God, how do you pray? How do you pray for the water? What on earth?
Look how far you've come.
Anyway, I had to say something, and I suppose I said something that was right. And of course, the water has trapped me because we're always worrying about the water. But anyway, I said that. The next thing I know, they invited me into the sweat lodge. Now, as you know, I was reluctant to go to the gathering in the first place. I was not sure what to expect. Um, and there you go. So then I thought, my gosh, Romola, how often does anybody get invited to a gathering, get invited to an indigenous ceremony? Like, this has got to be some kind of magic happening. So I just took off my shoes and went in. And who was in the sweat lodge but you?
I was.
Yeah, you were in that lodge as well.
I didn't know that was your first.
Yeah, that was my first.
Very good.
Okay, so over to you now.
Well, funny because I'm picturing it in my brain as you're speaking of it. And I remember, was this the one that was 33 of us went in?
Could have been. It was, yeah, it was a big gang.
There were 3 rows of 33. I think Lillian, grandmother Lillian.
I don't know if she was there. No, I think it was just the twins. It would have been the setup one.
Okay.
It would have been, I think, more of you guys who had been with the Sunbow 5 walk. And, yeah. And Jerome, I think, was there as well.
Yes. I remember specifically because something stood out in my mind. Right before I was going in to one of the sweats at one of his gatherings, it could be that very one, right at the last second, I still had my earrings on that somebody had gifted me, and I thought, oh my goodness, I can't wear these in there. And I quickly went to take them off, and I looked around me, and there he was, and you. And I stepped out of line real quick and said, Grandfather, can you please hold on to these for me? He said, sure. And I went in the sweat, and we had our amazing times, and the weekend went by, and the next year went by, and I came back August 1st, like always, the very next year. And the very next year, within 5 seconds of me walking up, I remember walking up, and there he was. And as soon as he saw me, before we even spoke, his face went, oh. And he started to reach into his pocket, and he says, New York, New York. And he pulls out my earrings.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And I thought, no wonder you're the keeper of the wampum belts.
Oh my God, absolutely no wonder at all. You know, that's a special story you share. I didn't know about that. But one year, one of our friends is now in Italy. And she met grandfather and talked about indigenous languages.
Right.
And I mean, 8 or 9 years later, he met her again, and he asked her, well, how was she doing with the indigenous languages? Serena D'Augustina, and she works with FELS, the international group that looks to the protection of indigenous languages.
Right.
And but his memory was like that. He really remembered his friends.
And there was a lot of those small, some people might call coincidences also, that always happened around his circle that we always considered being in tune, if you will. It was kind of magical. It's what I missed about him the most. He's still my favorite human being I've ever met on this whole earth to this day. And sorry.
Yeah.
Always, I know, it's even to this day, it's like, what a loss. He was supposed to live to 120, darn it, at least.
Yeah, well,
But,
he did his
you know,
damnedest.
And I used to think of him, when there's a certain saying that goes around for Christian people, what would Jesus do? The minute I started to not be able to see him every year, I would always live by that WWGD. What would grandfather do? Because I found that so poignant. Like, what would this other most balanced, greatest human being I ever met do in this situation? Because I have a very gentle side and a very salty side, and I always was intrigued most by his calmness, the things I would witness and how he would handle people that were disgruntled with him really impacted me in a way that, I think growing up, we learn to defend ourselves as children. You come into your adulthood and you have to be defensive in order to stand up for yourself. But in adulthood, you run into a wall with that if you just become too defensive. Then you're offending yourself. And it was very learning for me to watch him not be offended by people that were trying to offend him. He had such a love in his eyes as they were spewing hatreds at him that in that moment in time, I learned exactly who and how I would like to be. That doesn't mean that there isn't a time for, someone to be super defensive on someone's behalf or whatever. And we all should all embrace all sides of ourselves. But I remember how much I learned by that. And, it was a talk he was having with people who were really mad at him for opening up his lands to non-natives, for sharing. And he couldn't not do it and keep his word and his message. We are all one people. But the people that were upset from a very important place because so much has been taken from us. So he was his voice in the middle, and he was just fine with them being totally angry at him, and he had nothing but love for them in his eyes. And I always think about that, and I always try to be that way. I'm not always, but I always think of him. He's with me on that much of a daily basis, that man.
Wow, yeah, that is so true, and that is so special. Yeah, knowing myself some aspects of his own story, I can't believe it sometimes.
Yeah.
That a person could do that, could, yeah.
Well, that's why it's so important, because I got to personally, as did everyone around him, witness what that looks like. When you see another human being accomplish certain values, it's a lot more impacting than, say, reading about someone historical that you've never met. And the thing is, he was always, one of his messages that stuck with me was about how everybody is human. No pedestaling, careful, don't make heroes out of people, because they're just human, and we all take our turn at being great, so to speak. And he would always share those stories about, as he would say, who he used to be. He said it was important for him to be able to make sure people understood how imperfect he was and who he was in his earlier days, and that he hurt a lot of people he loved, and, but to become who he was still a possibility, as it is for every single one of us. So that was another thing that always stuck to my rib from him.
Yeah, indeed, truly inspirational. Can you tell me about your song? I wanted to start our little video with that one. Grandfather sent me on a walk to make medicine out of pain, because really what we feel with his work is the journey continues, the walk continues. How did he inspire that in us? And you interpreted it so incredibly.
You know, I look back now, I barely ever listen to my album, but when I do, it's just to connect with him, because I really met him and became involved right as I was already recording the album. You know, and so when you hear it, you realize, my God, how much it impacted me completely, wholly, 100%. And I was lucky enough to, have an avenue at the time, the album, to put all of my heart and words into what I was absorbing from him. So it's like indelible ink to me, but he impacted me greatly because I got it. Everything I got. It was like 1,000, I won't even say aha moments, because it wasn't like learning new things. It was like remembering everything. He would say it, and there'd be a deja vu almost from him. So, yeah, I have so much other music and things I've written solely based on what he, inspired in me. And we will do it one day. We will do it one day as the story continues.
Okay. Well, wait, we'll talk a little later.
Yes, hello to everybody out there. I hope to reconnect much more and be more involved, Romola. But just know you got lots of people praying for you, your work. As they say, when Ojibwe, when you're the jingle dress dancers, they dance for all of us that cannot. And I often think of you in that way. You are my jingle dress dancer. For all I cannot do, you just keep chugging along on behalf of all of us. So love you, and I'll talk soon.
Okay, wait, could you also do me a favor?
Sure.
And use up all the battery on your phone? Do you have some space on your phone?
I have battery, yes.
Okay, because I want you to call me on my Facebook page, and then I would like to play that song of ours, our video with you, so people can see you.
I went and watched it.
But I'd like to play it for the big crowd out there.
Okay, but I don't think I can call from Facebook.
Okay, don't worry about it. I'm sure somebody else can. Who can call me? I know.
I'm gonna go back over there when we hang up. I go to online on my browser on my phone, and I'll watch it from there.
Yeah. Okay. No, I wanted to go live, but I can't double screen show. Okay. Goodbye. I'll talk to you a little later.
Bye.
Love you. Love you.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, folks, that was very special. I am now going to call Delphina. And first, I'm going to have her allow me to show you that video again. Hi, Delphina. How are you?
Hello. How are you? Oh, it's been quite the new moon today.
Yeah, no
As we
kidding,
start
eh?
off.
Could I take advantage of your phone
Yes.
and screen show our video, and then we'll chat.
And then what?
And then we'll chat.
And then we're.
No, I'm hearing
No,
double, so
I'm
that's not
hearing double,
working.
so that's not
Okay, so
working.
I'm just going to
Okay,
allow
so
you
I'm just going to allow you
the floor to say a few
the
words,
floor to say a word,
and I'll keep quiet because
and
I'm
I keep
echoing.
quiet because I'm echoing. Okay, so are we able to talk back and forth?
We can, preferably
Can,
not too much,
preferably not too much. Okay.
but I'm putting you
Well,
on
I'm
live.
putting you on. Well, I just want to first of all say it's really wonderful, Romola, that we're able to get together like this, and just come together like with technology and the Circle of Nations in this way. Um, very grateful. It's interesting. It's like today is the sixth new moon on the 13 moon calendar, and there's a lot of wind and a lot of air energy on the planet that is mercurial right now. And so it's interesting that today is the day that I was thinking about this last week, Romola. I didn't realize it was a new moon in air, but it is. It's exactly on a whole new cycle, and I mean one that we have never seen so much before. There's a lot of wind that affects the air on many levels.
Yeah, well, thank you so
Well, thank
much
you so much
for your post on Facebook
for your
alerting us
post on Facebook and listening
to all these cosmic things.
to all these cosmic things.
But I can't talk really now
But
because
I
there's an
can't talk
awful
really now
echo.
because there's
So
an
you
awful
talk and
echo.
say goodbye.
So you talk and say goodbye. Okay, so I'll just say, okay, I'm just going to give a couple little connections. Well, for me, I just feel like I just wanted to share that there's so many things that have happened that when I first really connected with, with the circle, was with with grandfather William Commando, was with, the connection with my dream that I had of Turtle's Dream. And Turtle's Dream came about in 2009, and it was a dream that I had on the four corners of Arizona and New Mexico, and it's about a dream that I had about a turtle that has a dream, and how to bring harmony after a very huge shaking. And so anyway, it was made into a children's book, and I sent it to grandfather. I think it was in 2010 that I sent right after the book was published. And it was the next, and now I know he received it, and Romola, you had said that he looked at the book and said, yay, go ahead, yeah, great idea, the message needs to get out to the children, and go for it. And then it was, I think it was about a year later that grandfather passed, which was really quite something for the date. Because I was in my car in Arizona driving, and then my brakes went on the vehicle as I was going down a hill. And interestingly, at that moment, what happened is that a hawk literally flew by the car, which was directing me to turn the car to the side of the road, and as the car moved to the side of the road, it eventually stopped at the bottom of the hill. And unbeknownst to me, on that date, which was August the 3rd, which is the same day as my son, that he was born on the 3rd, was the day that grandfather passed. And that was also the day that my drum on my wall actually drummed by itself. It went boom. And I knew something had happened. So a few things happened is that I found out that grandfather had passed, that he was trying to let me know with the drum on my wall, and that the hawk came by as a messenger to let me to also to help me as well too when the car went to the side, and it actually saved my life. And I can't remember what year it was, Romola, but when I went to, I actually went to Ottawa, and that is when, well, you and I were connecting with each other after that, I read Turtle's Dream at the at a downtown Circle of Nations gathering. And I can't remember when that was, but I read Turtle's Dream there at the Circle. And I think it was a year after that too that that I went and let me see what that you and I got together, and we passed by the quarry, and we're talking about, I guess at that time when I was walking by the quarry, that I suddenly felt lightheaded, and I felt that there was something there by the quarry, and which is a rock quarry. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, but our family line, my mother's line, were called Carrier, Carrier in Landry, so it's Abenaki, Algonquin, and so we also have Abenaki, Algonquin, but so anyway, there was a big thing about the quarry and the flint, and so anyway, around that area, I really felt something, and you and I were walking at that time, and I felt that lightheadedness, and that's when, we saw I saw the feather, the hawk feather that was gifted, and you were there for that time, and that was pretty something, because I really felt, at that point, that there were ancestors. Our ancestors were in that area. And it was like, I forget, but there was a little brush, and it said quarry on there and carrier on there. So there's one of our family members that are, I guess, is really close in that land, that's been, that passed on in that area. So there's one trying to, it's like back and forth. I feel like I'm doing a monologue. So anyway, so I guess what I just want to talk about, so this is coming around full circle. I'm trying to figure out the other time is that we did a you and I forget where, Hogs Fall, and I think it was, I don't know, I can't remember whether it's spring or the fall now, but did a water blessing with you there. And so I went to the water and did a water blessing, so. And it kind of brings me today too. There's a couple things that I wanted to connect. It's through the connection of the Circle of Nations. I also met Beau Jean Letelier through United Circle for Earth as well too. And unbeknownst to both of us, which another connection with grandfather, I was in Hopi, and of all places, where do we meet? Is that we meet in Hopi. So, so that's another one of the circle members of Beau, son Beau, that we were there together, and we were connected also through grandfather in Hopi, and which is all part of Turtle's Dream in the book as well too. So. And I think, let me see, I'm trying to figure one last thing, is my juice and my battery seems to be going. Today, as you know, Romola's my father read the entire book of the kindergarten book. All I learned was from kindergarten. I can't remember the name of the book. I'm a little frazzled today because my father this morning was rushed by ambulance to the hospital in Ontario, and I know, and it's just like, oh my goodness, when I first saw you go on, I was like, we didn't know whether he was here with us or not. So but I just before I just phoned you, my brother let me know, like, it's my brother's birthday today, and so my dad passed out on the porch and rushed by ambulance, and of course no one can go to the hospital because of the COVID C-19. So he's there by himself, and the hospital just let us know, my brother and my mom know, that he's going to be staying over and doing CAT scan, but he's woken up right now and no one's allowed. So it's interesting. I just kind of reminded me as I put the candle on and lit some sage and cedar, and I've got this, I have a rock that says Daddy You Rock on there. And my dad is a Capricorn, so the rock. And so I guess, and I'm also thinking of grandfather at this time as well too, because my dad also knew, or just, he's still here right now, and he's very connected to quarry and to flint and to rock, and and this is a really strong connection, because when he read the book, he kept saying, this is a really, really good man. I wish I was able to meet grandfather William Commanda, and I am glad that you have that connection with him, and that he felt that strong connection in that book. Like, unbelievable. So I just feel right now, as we're talking, and my dad's in the hospital, and grandfather's watching over this, and I've got this big rock in front of me right now. So there's something about this whole connection, so I just want to just pass that all on. There's so many different levels that we're working on. And so I'm just holding on to the rock just to stay grounded right now, and also with the air and the wind energy, knowing that everything is being held in balance, even though, like, I mean, there are so many different energies at work right now, because everything is swirling. And I posted up a photograph this morning on my post. I'm on the west coast right now, on the traditional land of the Songhees and Lukwigan nations. I am a guest here. My family is from the Deux Montagnes on my mother's line, Quebec, and from there went to Maniwaki, and Wolf Clan, and Turtle Clan as well too. So it's interesting for me to be here right now. So yesterday, with the messages and the wind that I got, was a family of geese that went by with the babies. It was so windy, and they were just standing by the airport by the water. And the other one was a red ball, brand new one, near a seal that has swirlies like the galaxy in the ocean. And it's like, it's not in our court right now. In other words, that ball is there, and it's not in our court. And the air is swirling, and there's a greater destiny for all of us, and we need just to trust in that, and the trust in the ancestors, and trust in the prayers of our ancestors, that they prayed for us and for all of our nations, for all the animals and the flyers and the fin ones, and the four-leggeds, and the tree nations and the rock nations, and flowering and the fruit nations, and all of our nations. And it's like trusting, like there's a rock in the middle of all this. And anyway, I'm just trusting in that. I just talked a lot. Shimigwich.
Chimegwech, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm going to hang up, and you can just hear me talk more.
Okay, sounds good. Later.
Bye.
Bye. See.
So, I've actually seen many photos of Delphina's parents, a really old couple, wonderful couple living in the Sudbury area. And as Benjamin has written, our prayers for your father's health, Delphina. And thank you for sharing all those memories of your linkages with us and the Circle of All Nations and with Ottawa. It was indeed the Quarry Trail right here in Canada that Delphina found her hawk feather and a connection with some of her ancestors. And of course, I know that's an incredibly special area. In fact, very, very special, such that a few years ago I was able to see the floor of the ancient sea from 560 million years ago, and now you can't see that floor anymore. Uh, Evolution is happening, transformation of the landscape is happening. I hope right now the beavers are taking right over. And thank you. You were actually at the Hog's Back Fall in the spring, and that was another incredible moment where we saw the power of water. We saw the power of water and rock. And that is really a good note to finish it off on. The word asin, the rock, the ancient rock, the place of the ancient rock, and of course the Ottawa River, one of the second wildest river of Canada, of North America actually, um, is this place where water and rock have intermingled to create just an incredible landscape, an incredibly powerful landscape. And I'm glad you brought in those other dimensions of the significance of nature in our lives to deepen the kind of conversation we've been having today. Miigwech, thank you very much. Okay. Um, and you know what, folk? I haven't been able to do the screen share with the visuals. So I'm not sure how that works best. It worked with Zenny this morning, and she phoned me in via a video chat. So in a little while, if anybody wants to try that, phone me on a video chat line to my Facebook line. We'll see if we can share you through screen share. But in the meanwhile, now I want to read this message that we created for the millennium, and we believe it's just as important now as it was then, perhaps even more relevant. And we talked about then a circle of all nations and a culture of peace, the vision of North American Algonquin elder William Commander, keeper of the Seven Fires Prophecy Wampum Belt. These difficult times we live in were foreseen by spiritual visionaries across the world. My ancestors warned us about this time and the choices we would have to make in the Seven Fires Prophecy, which was inscribed in wampum shell. The prophecy holds a vision for a future where we honor our relationship and responsibility to Mother Earth and all creation, celebrate our individual gifts and diversity, and still recognize and respect our place within a circle of all nations. The steps to this future are few. First, we look within so we know ourselves best, and we recognize and acknowledge and forgive ourselves, our shortcomings, and any failure to achieve our best potential. We forgive others for any hardships and pain they may have caused us and our communities, and we trust that this energy will transform them spiritually. We recognize that our thoughts, words, and actions affect ourselves, Mother Earth, and all creation, and we embrace peace mindfully. We listen to our minds, but we trust our hearts above all. It is of crucial importance that the people of the world respond immediately to the plight of the many oppressed by exploitation, social injustice, racism, and animate the human capacity for forgiveness, compassion, love, and reconciliation, and create a global synergy to ensure the improvement of the lives of all. This path will lead us to love, sharing, respect, responsibility, compassion, healing, reconciliation, equality, and justice. We shall then light the eighth fire together and become a circle of all nations, and a culture of peace. Yeah, miigwech for listening to that one. And as I say, it seems to us in this time of COVID crisis, all the elements of that message are as relevant now as they were before. The turtle in the image of that poster, I shall post it in a few minutes, actually came to visit us while we were sitting on Grandfather's Lake, a giant snapper. And that's a photo of him underneath the water. Um, yeah, magical moments. Okay, so now I'm going to, I should say, I have also posted on Facebook a couple of photos that were sent in to me this morning by David Barry. David Barry and our friend, the late Betsy Stang, and their friend Sharon Frankemar were the key coordinators of a prayer vigil that used to be hosted at the mall in Washington D.C. Every August, and as often as he could, Grandfather Commander joined the folk over there and took his wampum belts and shared the messages of the wampum, the seven fire prophecy, and in fact affirmed his engagement with the land of the other capital. Of course, Grandfather's ancestors were the Algonquins, the Mamiwinini, the people of the the people of the American Northeast. And before there was a Canada and the U.S., this land was the land of his ancestors, the waters leading right into Washington D.C. The earliest challenges between the newcomers and the people of the land uh, happened in that area. And when Grandfather took his prayer there, he was taking prayer to land that had been despoiled by um gross unfairness, I suppose. Delphina said something about the 3rd of August, that being a special day in her story, but also the day that Grandfather Commander passed. And I was reminded that he passed on that day, which was also the birthday of Jules Siwi. Jules Siwi was the creator, really, of the indigenous nations, the North American Indian nations government. He used to work in New York, Wakeway. He was a cook over there. And this was around about the time that the United Nations was evolving and developing. And at one point, he went into the United Nations and talked to the Secretary General, then Tocqueville, about uh, the seats that were occupied by the foreigners, uh, because he felt that the special space was the place of the indigenous peoples, and so he uh, created the North American Indian Nations government in the mid 40s, and that was the group that actually um, inspired the fight for rights. Way before the civil rights movement came, the indigenous peoples were active in that regard. Oh, sorry, I was distracted because Delphina is so excited. She's sending me photographs of the many things that she talked about. But actually, you will have to go and post them on our Facebook page so that other people can see them. Okay, I'm just going to take a minute then to see if anybody would like to say anything, would like to chat right now, or else we'll end this live stream and we'll catch up again at 6 for our final streaming. So would anybody like to say something? Delphina is not paying any attention to me. She's posting photos on her phone. Okay, guys, I shall now then post our video on here. Let me do that. And you can watch it over your tea break. Take care, and we'll talk to you later. The idea for this video began when the Hearthstar Festival came looking for musical contributions to inspire environmental stewardship. William Commander was the greatest leader in this regard. His passion for all things related to the environment was evident in every breath he took during his journey here in Mother Earth.